I'd like to invite the moderator for the panel discussion, Mr. Sanjay Nayak, CEO and Managing Director, Tejas Networks. I'd like to request him to please come up on stage, and as he does, please give him a big round of applause as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage the moderator for this panel discussion on building a futuristic digital infrastructure, Mr. Sanjay Nayak, CEO and Managing Director, Tejas Networks. And joining him on the panel, please welcome on stage Manish Gagne, Head R&D Airtel, Dr. Vivek Raghavan, Chief Product Manager and Biometric Architect, Unique Identification Authority of India, and Mr. Girish Baliga, Marketing Manager, High Speed Digital Aerospace, Defense and Wireless, Keysight Technologies, India. I'd like to now hand the mic over to the moderator for this session, Mr. Sanjay Nayak.
So first of all, good evening. Welcome to the panel on building a futuristic digital infrastructure. Over the next 60 minutes or so, I will try to cover a few broad themes. And we'll try to make it a little bit interactive. So we'll talk for about 30-35 minutes and then leave it for question and answers for the rest of the group. So in terms of just setting the stage for this session, if you think of what's going to be the future digital infrastructure looking like, there are three different elements one can think of. First of all, of course, the network by itself. Today we have 4G. Clearly, over the next few years, we'll have 5G coming in on the wireless side. And of course, on the wireline side, you'll have fiber to the home or fiber to the buildings. And that would essentially create a super, highly scalable, high capacity, highly reliable infrastructure, because all those three elements would be needed in the future infrastructure. And with the impending rollouts of 5G, which is still, I would say, some time away, as much as one would like to believe that it's happening, there are going to be some seriously good opportunities for the ecosystem, both in terms of companies which are in the game today, companies which can come into the game today. Vivek, come on in. Okay, great. So there's a whole bunch of things around the new opportunities in 5G. One is called the cloudification of networks. So think about what data centers and cloud did to computing. 5G architecture could potentially do to telecom networks. So you could do a lot more stuff in software, a lot more intelligent edge devices, and it's a brand new architecture. So the guys who are not into the game can suddenly enter the game because it's just a paradigm shift in terms of networks. Densification of networks is another thing. So think about in 2G, we had base stations every 5 kilometers. When you get down to 4G, you have base stations every few kilometers. When you get down to 5G, you need some kind of a base station, maybe every half a kilometer. And think about the third aspect, which is again very interesting, is that disaggregation of hardware and software. So essentially what happened, if you think of, again, if you take the example of computing, so you had olden days, you had mainframe computers, from the chips to the systems to the software, operating systems, everything came from one particular source. You had a lock on the whole, computing infrastructure. Now, if you look at how 2G, 3G, and even 4G got built, if someone had a BTS, you had to buy their own, mobile switching center. It was all, and you cannot put a new upgrade card from Ericsson's equipment into Nokia's, for example. I mean, it was all logged into same hardware, same software, into same systems. What 5G again does, because of the need for significantly high capacity network rollouts, there is an opportunity for disaggregation of hardware and software. So hardware could be done by someone else, software could be done by someone else, and there could be third-party integrators, including operators themselves, who could put it all together. So I think this is opening up of architecture, opening up of hardware, software lock, and orders of magnitude increase in terms of the devices that will needed to run the network is a phenomenal opportunity. And I will talk about what kind of a impact this whole new paradigm can have in the infrastructure of the economy. The second point which I wanted to talk about was cybersecurity in a much more holistic way, because now pretty much everything that we do in our lives, or what things in our lives do, which is connected devices, has huge amount of data that gets generated, processed, and so on and so forth. So you have to have data security at multiple domains. The simplest is the physical domain, which is the device I'm using, is my mobile phone, is my home access device, is my computer, whatever, is it secured? Is someone snooping on it? So that's one level, right? The second level is the information itself, the citizens' data, and I'm sure when Vivek talks about the amount of data UID system generates, I mean, what are the possibilities that can be done with their data, and what are the risks which come along with such huge accumulation of data in one place, right? Then the third aspect is all of this infrastructure is really not of any good use if you don't have applications running on top. And now this is going to be absolutely mind-blowing in terms of what all can happen in our own societies and lives. So if you have like 6 billion people in the world connected on a network, in probably less than 5 years or maybe 10 at the most, you'll have 600 billion devices running on the network. Now that kind of infrastructure would pretty much change everything that we do in our lives in terms of e-governance, citizen services, public safety, you name it. Everything will have some element of networking, some element of connectivity, some element of smart applications running on top of it. Now, the other theme which I wanted to kind of put together, and I'll of course request all my co-panelists to talk about, is okay, all this is great, but what's it in for India? Have we missed the bus on 5G, and are we too late again? Or we can still catch this bus. And I really truly believe that there is a fantastic opportunity for the ecosystem in India, which is industry, of course government, academia, and everybody else, to create stuff, which could be hardware, software, all that stuff that we talked about, and I'm sure more people will talk about, and really solve this problem for India first. And I think this could be a very nice blueprint for how a lot of ecosystem in the ESDM sector could be built. Is you solve the problem for India, we pick India-specific applications, we pick application which we, as creators of products or services, have a better vantage point than someone sitting in America, because we can visualize and empathize and understand the problem far better sitting in India than someone in US who wants to solve the problem for India. But the good news is, if you can solve this problem for India, you're probably solving the problem for 2/3 of the world, because the 2/3 of the world which is unconnected will probably leapfrog into digital age faster than the developed world, which has still got a lot of legacy infrastructure. So I think we are really in a sweet spot of economy and a talent pool where we can create things. We see a lot of problems, we have opportunities. So really I would say that if we can use India as a sandbox for solving these problems, it can be a fantastic opportunity. And what opportunities does all of the things that I talked about present to the ESDM ecosystem? I would of course love to hear from my panelists. Just a couple of more slides I want to just show. One is that the impact of 5G across sectors, I talked about it. So as per one of the reports, it's going to have a $1.3 trillion worth of economic impact across sectors, And this could be from smart energy to smart transportation to public safety, media, entertainment, financial services, retail, you name it all. So I think this is a fairly big enough problem that we can use as an anchor to figure out what are the different elements of the ecosystem or infrastructure or digital infrastructure that we need to create, use India as a sandbox. We still have time. 24 to 36 months is adequate time, as you all know, in the tech industry to create whatever products and services we need to create. And really, India, for the first time, unlike the previous generations of technology or digital infrastructure, is actually contributing to global standards. I'm sure you would have read some of the stuff in the press where, for the first time, India has contributed to 5G standards. We are actually telling the world what we want versus the world telling us that this is what you need. And secondly, our government seems to be pretty serious about using the 5G ecosystem and creating that. And we have world-class global scale operators, one of which is represented over here, taking the India solutions to the rest of the world. So I think we have kind of a nice perfect storm in terms of the ecosystem, in terms of the problem domain, in terms of capability of India as a country, the people represented in this room in terms of hardware, software, chips, or whatever else is needed to really solve this really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of scale and size that we have. And I would definitely like to see different elements of this opportunity being rolled out by my co-panelists. So without going more, I would request Manish Gange, who is head of R&D from Airtel, and I've had the opportunity and privilege to work with him over the last 20 years in Synopsys first and then in Tejas. So Manish, I would like to, of course, hear your views.